영권 골입니다. 공동입니다. 공동이 역전을 만듭니다. 이천의 갈비를.
Winners of the AFC Champions League 2020, Ulsan Hyundai.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, 안녕하세요. Ryan Walters in the K-League United bunker this week, joined by, well, not as many folks as usual this week, alone in the bunker as it would be. I am joined only by Matthew Binns.
Hello.
And Matthew, I feel like we need to just get this out there right away for the folks that are watching us live right now. That is a massive headset you got there, buddy.
It is. You've interrupted me during my Football Manager live stream on Twitch. I don't know. I didn't realize we had a podcast tonight, to be honest. No, I've been taken aback by Peter's red light microphone,
the ET finger.
Yeah, no, I've gone for that, but it's got a few light up panels on the side as well. And, well, I figure that every week I've got a different microphone because every week I've got different mic problems, and I thought, well, this week let's go 100% gaming headset, and so this is it now. This is what we do.
Sounds quality, headsets. Yeah.
For now,
you have gaming headsets. Was it like I'm just curious? Was it like a guilty purchase or something because you felt bad for crashing out of Survivor so early?
Yeah, it was one to make myself feel better. Actually, I didn't feel guilty about crashing out of Survivor Series because I chose Ulsan. Clearly, I was the one to jinx them. And
thanks for that.
Well,
thanks for that.
Spoiler, yeah, that's Ulsan were defeated at the weekend for the first time this season, and we'll be discussing that a little bit more in detail. But yeah, I'm out of Survivor 4 weeks in. three got through the first round and then lost the following three. But I understand you also took a bit of a hit this weekend.
Yeah, same team. I just I looked at the schedule and I was like, Daegu will turn it around eventually. But go ahead, give me Ulsan this weekend. I'll be safe. They're not going to lose. Yeah, thanks, Cecina, buddy. Anyway, so that's where we are with Survivor. If you don't know what we're talking about, that's part of our Patreon features. You just pick a team that won't lose, and Matthew has now joined our own Bronco Balan as two K-League United columnists / editor that didn't make it. So I'm just happy I've out-survived. I've outlived a few people, so pretty pleased with myself there. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about what we're here for. Other than just wanting some quality time with Matthew, the reason that there are only two of us this week is because we have a lot of other things lined up. Matthew and I are going to put a cap on the weekend that was as we go ahead and look forward to the FA Cup break and the international break coming up this weekend. And that's also going to include his chat with Pete Hampshire after something happened in Jeonju. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, Peter's off putting a cap on his teeth this week, I think, isn't he? So it's the reason why he's not here. Yeah, he's down in Gwangju or wherever he has to go to get his dentistry done. But yeah, he's unable to talk this week, which is a crying shame for the Ginje tourist board.
Yeah, right. Who else is going to be talking about them? So we will talk about the weekend that was, and then after that, we're going to welcome in the voice of K-League in many ways, the man that calls the matches in English. Alex Jensen is going to join us in the second segment to mainly talk about that experience, and that's where we've capped it for the podcast version. The full version will be on Patreon later, where we talk a little bit more about Crystal Palace and how much he loves them and why that may have led to Suwon sort of being his team, Seoul allegiances, and all these other things. But we'll get into that a little bit later. And then we are going to come back. And because we like making fools of ourselves, Matthew and I are going to put a lid on March. We're not done with it yet, but we're going to put a lid on the K-League season, and we're going to talk about the disappointments, surprises, and name an MVP of the month for March. And then, of course, we've got the mailbag. So if you're watching live and you'd like to get in your questions, comments, or reactions, please go ahead and do so, and we'll get to those in due course. But Matthew, let's you want to start K1 or K2?
Oh, well, K2 is let's save that for dessert, I think. No. I think K2 first. K2.
Okay,
first.
we're gonna start in K League 2. The weekend started where I started my weekend. It was Friday afternoon was gorgeous. I spent most of my day working outside at a cafe. It was lovely. And then Saturday, it was cold and rainy. So I made the long trek over to Bucheon to see the Jeonnam Dragons draw 1-1 with Bucheon 1995. Park Chang-jun in this one was outstanding for Bucheon. I thought Bucheon looked pretty good in this one. Not good enough to get the win. Lee Jung-ho got his first of the season and came back and made it a 1-1 draw. But I think the takeaway from this one for me was that I don't really think Bucheon is as bad as their record may seem. And their record isn't even that bad. We're still really early in K2 through 4 rounds. They're 6th right now. They've only lost once, though. And I think it's kind of obvious for me to at least see why after that match. You were busy at that time, so we'll just leave that one there. We'll move on to another one where this one got interesting. A couple of red cards. It was Anyang versus Daejeon Hana Citizen, and there was a red card in the 9th minute for Anyang, Junyeon, I should say, and then Baek Dong-gyu got one in the 80th minute. So 2 red cards for Anyang in this one, and Daejeon come away the winners there. Matthew, is everything going to be okay for Paul and for Daejeon?
Well, I mean, as long as they keep getting the 3 points, I'm sure everything will be all right for Paul. But I don't know whether that means everything will be all right for Daejeon. They're still struggling to get going, aren't they? And it's worrying times. I mean, a win's a win, and sometimes the old cliche, it's harder to break down a team of 10 men rather than 11 because they naturally become more compact. But still, you'd expect Daejeon with the talent at their disposal that they could possibly get another goal there. And, in a league that is decided by goals scored instead of goal difference, you should take the advantage when you can. And so, Daegu being a bit slow to start. They've got the talent pool to be doing better. It's early days, for, as you said, Daejeon, yes.
You said Daegu. Both are true. Yeah, so we'll have to see what comes from that. But like you say, good for them to get the win. Another team that just keeps on winning, and they're up to 2nd in the table. Ansan Greeners got a 1-0 victory over Cheongnam Asan. Another red card in this one. Lee Sung-min for Cheongnam Asan picked up the red. Robson Duarte got the penalty for this one. And Ansan Greeners, again, 4 rounds in, but they're up to 2nd. This is all before Asnawi Mangkulam starts playing as well. So they could be sneaky good this year.
Yeah, well, we certainly thought they weren't going to be. We didn't think they would set the K League 2 alight, but they're doing all right at the moment. Again, I know we're going to keep saying early days. I'm going to say it a lot through all of this this particular podcast, but they've started well. There's a reason for optimism there. I think a lot of teams have underestimated them as well. So, well, good on them, really.
Yeah, see if they can keep that up. One that we don't have to spend a ton of time on was Gyeongnam 0, Seoul Elan 0. Good on our Michael Redmond for making the trek down there for a 0-0. Sorry about that one, buddy. I think the positive here is for Elan, they stay undefeated. They stay top of the table. For Gyeongnam, they're the first team that holds Seoul Elan scoreless. And this is a team that has been scoring quite a bit. So some positive takeaways despite the scoreline. But again, it's a 0-0, so we'll just leave that one there.
I mean, it's good that Seoul Elan have only conceded 1 as well against Jeonnam. So Seoul Elan are also, yes, they may not have scored on this occasion, but it's just continues to show that they're getting the clean sheets against these bigger teams.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not the sexiest result, but it will be very important as they continue on in the season and stay top of the table. A team that's hoping to get up there sooner than later was the team of the round, according to K-League official. It was Busan I Park, who came back from 1-0 down against Gimcheon Sangmu. A brace for An Byung-jun in the 51st and 56th minute. Paul was on Twitter duty for this one, and I love the reference to 2 buses showing up after you've been waiting a long time. So we're going to have Paul on social a little bit more often. That was good stuff there. But Busan, they all of a sudden they are looking all right. Is it just going to be an up and down season for them, though?
I mean, who's to know, really? The manager still feels a bit of an unknown quantity to me. He also, he hasn't had long into the season, still trying to find his best team and stuff. But it's now An Byung-jun is scoring, and oh yes, he's scoring. Then it could start working itself. It's working itself out, I think. But yeah, early days as well. I'm sorry, I've got to stop using that cliche. It feels like I've not learned anything from this first few weeks, but everything I expected at the beginning of the season is already a lot of it's come back to shock me already. And but yeah, I think we did expect Busan to start not that strongly given the upheaval, and
Right.
yeah, well, good result for them.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Another decent result for both sides moving into K1 now. Jeju United and Gwangju FC finished 1-1. I think that's actually a positive result for Gwangju because they had lost 2 in a row coming into that one. So to get a draw and to come from behind the way that they did in that one, especially against such a stingy defense in Jeju there, they've only allowed 3 so far through 6 matches. Jeju just sneakily staying unbeaten, though. It's all draws. They've got 1 win in there, but it's all draws. But when considering those draws have come against Jeonbuk and Ulsan as well, it's a pretty solid start for the Islanders.
Yeah, definitely. And, well, yeah, you got to give Gwangju some credit, I think, in this as well. I don't think, they come in with a couple of defeats into this game, but they've still been playing quite well, considering how much we tipped them to struggle. And I think their goalkeeper, Yoon Bo-sung's been having quite a good start to the season. So, yeah, I think Gwangju have surprised a lot of people. Jeju, though, get your defense right, and then safety certainly becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Clint has come in on YouTube and would like you to stop using cliches.
Well,
it's part of football, Clint. This is what we do. All right, we're going to come back to that Jeonbuk and Suwon result because you were there for that one. So we'll come back to that. One of the ones that I really want to talk about is, obviously there was a super match. Obviously, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Again, we're being a little bit brief because we've got other things to get to. But Gangwon FC, 2-0 winners over Incheon United, and they were the ones that got the red card in this. Tons of red cards this weekend. Kim Dong-hyun is sent off for his second yellow in the 45th minute. Shermatov had them in the lead at that point, and then they still looked good. They got more shots on target. They had more shots overall than Incheon did in this one. Ko Mu-yeol ended up adding a penalty in the 87th minute to seal the win for them there. But Gangwon, I think for me, the thing was before that red, especially, they started to look more like Gangwon. They were playing the way that I want to see them play anyway, that possession-based football that's at least a little bit different from what we see from most teams. So positive signs for them there. And I think, we'll move along because too much to get to today. Too much to get to. Unless you really want to talk about Gangwon.
No, but I do think Incheon probably lacked a bit of threat up front. Magos is still missing, obviously, but they have been doing well, Incheon. But I guess Gangwon, Byung-Soo Ball, finding it, well, it's against Incheon, isn't it? So,
Oh, you heard it here first, everybody. Matthew Binns hates Incheon United.
No, I'm going to have lovely things to say about Incheon later, but...
later after they get a win?
Yeah, I just think... I think that we expected Gangwon to be playing better football anyway.
Sure.
And I know there's points made in the last podcast saying, well, their opening 3 games were against the top 3 from last season. Well, yeah, fair enough to a certain extent, but Gangwon have always promoted themselves as this side that's going to be pushing for ACL and is going to be challenging the top sides. Well, it's about time they really challenged them. And their first result of the season, they can only do it against a side that finished second from bottom last year. So okay, they've got to win. They're off the mark. Good for them. But I'm still yet to be convinced.
Well, you know what, Matthew? It's early days, so. All right, we're going to move on. Songbin Kyu in the Pohang Steelers 2-1 loss to Songnam FC was trying his best for a Gordie Howe hat trick. For those of you that aren't familiar with the NHL or what that might mean, Gordie Howe, a Detroit Red Wings legend. A Gordie Howe hat trick means that you scored a goal, got an assist, and got in a fight. That is a Gordie Howe hat trick. And Songbin Kyu was trying his best for the K-League equivalent of that. He didn't get in a fight, but he did get a straight red in the 42nd minute. He had a goal in the 6th minute before that, but Songnam, it took them a little while after the red card to kind of find their groove, but eventually Lee Jung-min got his first ever professional goal, and it was a match winner in the 89th minute. Go on, my son. That's a way to start. Songnam looking all right all of a sudden. They are 4 games unbeaten, 3 wins and a draw. They're up to 5th in the table. This feels familiar, though.
Well, they've done quite decent business in the winter, but They've started. I mean, getting Richard Vinbickler in, that's certainly a bit of a coup for them. And Bus is parked evidently, and Mulic seems he seems to be doing quite all right as well for himself. But yeah, I did. You did have to smile when Lee Jung-min scored that winner.
Yeah.
He did debut, 21 minutes, 21 years old, or 21 minutes on the pitch rather, and he just looked absolutely delighted when he scored.
Yeah,
but yeah, Songnam, they're doing well.
Yeah, we'll see how long they can keep it up. I think it might be because they've got Joey, the baseball Brit as he is. He's following them this year, so I think they're doing it for him. All right, let's move on and let's talk about the super match. Let's talk about Suwon Samsung Blue Wings getting out to a 1-0 lead in the 16th minute. Jung Sang-bin, this young man can't stop scoring. It's only been 2 games that he's played so far, but 2 goals, and he's looking good at the ripe old age of 18 for the Blue Wings. But unfortunately for them, it wasn't enough to get the win. Ki Sung-young, speaking of people in form, Ki Sung-young gets his 3rd goal in 3 games to tie this one. And then Park Jung-bin gets an interesting one in this. It's flicked up in the air and I don't think it's going over the line, but it falls to him on the floor and he kind of scissor kicks it from the ground in to win this one. Not bad for an opening super match, because again, when the weather's still cold, matches can be a little bit more cagey, but I think that 16th minute goal really helped open this one up.
Yeah, and it was really quite a good goal as well. I mean, it was headed. Kim Gun-hee won it in the air, headed it on, and Jung had still a lot of work to do. He shouldered Kim Won-gun off the ball, and Kim Won-gun, I've actually been, I'm not that familiar with this whole Seoul team, but I have watched him quite a bit this season, surprisingly, and he's not impressed me in the defence. Kim Won-gun, he has not started well, and Jung, 18-year-old lad, shoulders the more experienced defender out off the ball, and then just slots it past Yang Han-bin into the bottom corner. It was a really, really good opener. But yeah, the super match as a whole, I guess, 3 goals, comeback, you can't complain as a neutral per se, but I would have liked to have seen Suwon perhaps get the result there. I was a bit disappointed with Jeric. Jeric had a couple of chances.
This is my surprise face.
Yeah, comeback player of the year, Jeric.
Well,
not looking, that good with that prediction at the moment, but it's who knows what could happen later on.
I think Scott Whitelock put it best on Twitter. They got the Gyeongnam Jeric, not the Gangwon Jeric. We'll see. Let's give them some time, because the Blue Wings can turn it around, and that's their first loss of the season, obviously. Speaking of first losses of the season, Daegu FC came away 2-1 winners over Ulsan Hyundai. The goals came late in this one. Dave Boltuis got one. I was a little disappointed he didn't try for the knee slide in this one. He did the half shirt lift. Looked like he wanted to take his shirt off. Wasn't sure. Dave, we love you, buddy, but plan those celebrations ahead of time. But looked like that by all accounts could have or should have been the winner, with Ulsan being Ulsan. But Lee Gun-ho goes ahead and gets his first goal for Daegu in a long time. And then some guy named Cecina went and did some things. Yeah. He ended up getting the winner.
Yeah, Cecina with about 67 A's on the end of his name, going by how the commentators celebrated that one. They were doing their best Aguero.
I was going to say,
trying to have an Aguero moment, but I mean, it doesn't. Round 6 into a season, it's hardly
same.
It's hardly 3-2 against QPR, is it? But yeah, no, great turnaround from Daegu. I thought Daegu looked all right actually for most of that match, and they've struggled a lot this season. I mean, we obviously tipped Ulsan not to lose, as we mentioned at the top of this podcast. We thought that was the safe pick in Survivor, and well, shame on us really for doubting that man, Cecina. But Ulsan still struggling to find goals. That's 3 games unbeaten now. 3 games unbeaten, 3 games without a win rather for Ulsan, and that is also the stat that Dan Croydon, who, found a more important reason to not catch this defeat. Congratulations, Dan.
There's another Croydon in the world, so congratulations.
There's another Croydon, another Ulsan, another Blackburn Rovers fan in the world. But yes,
he hopes.
No, I think, Dan likes to bring out that stat that they haven't beaten anybody but Jeonbuk and Pohang. This is their first. Haven't been defeated by anybody but Jeonbuk and Pohang, rather. So this is the first time since 2018 that Ulsan have lost to somebody other than those 2. So,
and the team before that, Jeon Dragons. Anyway, so that was the weekend that was for the most part, except for Matthew and Peter, post-Dennis appointment. Peter, as usual these days, took in the match in Jeonju where it ended 1-1. And, well, here's what they had to say afterwards.
Let's get to the events that happened.
Before we do move on, it was the first time that Ilyichenko and Gustavo started up front as a two.
Mhm.
What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was a little bit stagnant. I thought John Book were very organised at the back, but I thought going forward, I don't really think there was much connection between the two. I think it works far better when there's the one striker up front and the midfielders feeding them. And I think that's kind of what we saw as soon as Gustavo came off at half-time for Hankyo on. We saw John Book seem to liven up a bit and start to create those chances. And, well, their first chance... Well, the goal, shall we say, it was a penalty. It was taken by Stanislav Ilyichenko, his 4th goal in 3 games. It's also 3 consecutive matches he's scored. So that's 4 goals in 7 days. He's finding the form that, well, with no junior to compete with, he's now in the lead for the Golden Boot race.
That Jolabukto air, it's invigorating. Yeah,
It's quite odd. It's been quite a few seasons before since John Book have last had a prolific striker, and it's still early days, but he's certainly looking the part at the moment. But penalty, coolly, calmly dispatched. I don't think that would be anybody's issue. There was a number of people not too pleased with the referee's decision. First of all, what did you make of it, Peter?
I think we're the only 2 people that thought it was a penalty. By looking at the social media, I think his arm was in an unnatural position, and I know it's bounced off his thigh onto his arm, but it's still in this kind of position.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. You've been looking at the rules through that second half.
I have now. Okay. By rules, the official got it right. I don't think you should be criticising the officials here. I think the official called it right. The rule is a deflection that clearly makes no difference to the ball touching a hand or arm that is clearly extended away from the body and or above the shoulder. So a deflection makes no difference. If it comes up, hits his thigh, hits his arm is extended laterally, therefore a handball. Referee called it right. That doesn't mean I agree with the rule. I don't agree with the rule, but the rule was carried out correctly. So I don't think I think Suwon was just unlucky there. I think Pauchi Su unlucky. He seems to be having quite a week, old Pauchi Su. But yeah, unfortunately, for Suwon anyway, it was given and correctly given, regardless of how people interpret it. Just a bit harsh, but Suwon did rally, and I think we should focus on that. It seemed to jolt them into life, and well, there was certainly a chance in the 80th minute, just before the equaliser anyway. Jong Chung-gun threw on goal. Song Bom-kun denying him from point blank. Song Bom-kun's 100th match today. I'm sure he won't be happy, though, that he didn't get the clean sheet.
It looked like he was going to celebrate in the perfect style, and he's obviously a great keeper for John Book, and he showed that today. Lucky to have him. But yeah, and that save he made in the 80th minute, it came out big. It looked like that was going to be a match-winning save. Unfortunately, the correct decision again from this time on the VAR. Initially, the equaliser was disallowed, and then his run was timed perfectly. Jong Gon-un, and yeah, an 89th minute equaliser, which completely changed the atmosphere inside the stadium, and everyone was downhearted at the end, even though that unbeaten run just continued.
Yeah, I think it was a deserved equaliser begrudgingly. I don't think. I think Suwon certainly looked fired up in the second half. I can see already we've got some. Well, we were only privy to the replays that we could see at the time, so we'll have to go back and check it. But as far as I was concerned, when I saw it, I thought it was a harsh handball. I thought on the replays, the limited replays we got, because obviously we're following this as it happens, it looked like handball. But fair enough, we can go back and check. But I from my initial gut instinct, handball. But anyway, it finishes 1-1. A good point for Suwon today. Do you think they'll be encouraged by their performance today?
Yeah, it was a deserved point, definitely. And Hansen Gu started on the bench and then came off, and I thought he looked lively. He came on around 25 minutes. Going forward, you've got to think they're not in danger of relegation. They just want a nice, steady season back in the top tier.
Yeah, well, points like this will certainly encourage them, and soon hopefully they'll be finding their first win of the season as well.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. And if you're watching live, despite appearances, I am not talking to myself. I am joined by the voice that many of you internationally have heard. Maybe you haven't seen the face. Maybe if you have seen the face, you thought that we were the same person. But Alex Jensen, we are here at the same time, virtually, mind you. So people might still think that we've somehow cloned each other and that my British accent has gotten amazing. It's not that good. Or that your American accent's gotten better.
I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, believe it or not.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I might have had something closer to you had I stayed there, but I left as a baby. Not of my own accord.
That would have been very Southern. It would have been quite a bit different. But anyway, Alex, we finally got you on here. You've been calling K-League games. Last year, it was for the TV feed in, I think we got up to 46, 47 different countries. And now this year, same amount of countries, and you've also got K-League TV. So the people that have been watching for free, this is the man that you've been listening to. And I want to get started with the hard-hitting question here first. Have you ever actually said super save during a game?
I don't think we see many super saves. No, we should see a few more. Actually, last year we had some great moments. I think particularly Pohang and Incheon had some wonderful examples of super saves, but I don't think I actually said that phrase. No. As far as I remember, I know. I'll keep that in my locker, though. You always need synonyms.
Right? Yeah. And like I said, you started calling the games last year as the league returned from the COVID break. And I guess, well, one of the things there, and we were talking about this before we came on, you weren't necessarily all in on K-League before getting this assignment. And so on that note of like super save, for those that don't know, here in Korea, that's one of the Korean commentators go to is a super save. Like maybe sometimes too often. Also the stadium announcers, anytime anybody makes a save. But there are a ton of like Korean commentator isms. And I'm curious, did you watch any of the Naver streams or anything like that to like try to mimic that style at all?
No, I mean, I've had it on many times on my regular TV, the commentary in Korean, both of Korean football and as well as, of course, of the Premier League games, which I've been following since Crystal Palace arrived in the Premier League, pretty much coincided with me being in Korea. So most of my Crystal Palace supporting life, we were languishing in the Championship and what was even before the Championship. I started going to Palace games in 1984. So it's kind of ironic for me that, you know, since I've been in Korea, I've been following Palace through Korean commentary predominantly. And I think that the style, I mean, the biggest thing for me is the way the pitch rises. So they end up in this crescendo of a very high tone.
Very often.
Not something. I mean, if I try to mimic it, I think already it's happened to me a couple of times, even at my own pitch, that, you know, you can feel your voice starting to go when you are calling a goal. And I've started having some hot tea with me to help solve those scenarios. I think it just depends where your voice is that day. But I mean, it's a skill to be able to do it that high. It's not my style anyway. I feel like, you know, for me, by no means am I the expert on this, but I feel for me, my own natural inclination is to reflect the reality of the situation. So if Ulsan are going 3-0 up, I'm not going to scream as if they've just won the World Cup. But goal 2-1 up in the super match through a very unconventional Park Jung-bin goal line scramble, and that deserves a bit more pitch and a bit more volume. But I'm not. I mean, I just think they just bring such high energy to every incident, not just with the super saves, but a lot of it. It's and the other thing, of course, is that you got two similar voices, whereas. I think I've gotten very used to growing up with the ex-pro, not necessarily the silky voice, but the ex-pro offering a compliment to the more seasoned commentator.
Right. Yeah. And that actually leads into one of the things that I want to talk about, because I experienced the life that you live one time last year. And for those that don't know, calling these games, you're not in the stadium with like the little BBC mic up to your mouth. You're essentially, and unless the setups change this year, you're essentially in a closet, a nice closet, mind you. It's spacious-ish, with two TVs watching the broadcast feed and calling the game that way. You did actually get to do one live last year as well, but I just wanted to touch on that because even as somebody that mainly just watches the game, I found it very difficult to try to analyze the game using only the broadcast feed, because the benefit of being there in person is you can watch the off the ball runs, you can see everything that's happening throughout the whole pitch. So how have you dealt with that challenge in calling the games, of being limited to what people are seeing on the broadcast?
It has its pros and cons, like with anything. When I went to Incheon last season for their game against Ulsan, that was very refreshing in many ways, having had a few months in the glorified closet you mentioned.
Yeah.
But without any euphemisms intended, I went back into the closet afterwards, and I found there to be, I found there to be like actually a lot of pros again. So it wasn't bad going back. I think the pros of being in the closet is that it's so
keep
hard
it running.
to talk about this with a straight face. Is that you can have like lots of information in front of you without worrying about a bluster of wind or anything else getting in the way. You don't have to worry about other reporters or anyone else next to you. You have a lot of privacy. You can pretty much do anything to your heart's content, and two big screens as well, whereas in a stadium there might be some glare, the screen might not be of the best quality. If you are watching a replay or something like that, it's not necessarily actually that helpful for checking. The biggest disadvantage of being outside of the stadium, not in the stadium, is that you're relying on the camera people and sometimes things happen off camera, and or VAR decisions. It can be quite hard to be certain. For example, you see the referee point a certain direction, but if you're only looking at the referee, it's not necessarily clear which way they're pointing, and you can be pretty sure by the sound of the crowd, but you don't really want to say it's a goal and then no, it's not a goal, or it's a penalty, no, it's just a goal kick, or whatever. It's kind of there are challenges like that, but I feel like the more I do it, the more my intuition comes to the rescue there. But it has been challenging at times. I think that the practical conclusion is, if we were not able to use this booth, it would be very hard to deliver as many commentary games as we can to every round. Just wouldn't be possible. In the future, as the whole thing grows and interest in English language commentary grows, quite possibly we'll see a different situation. But for now, I think it's a good kind of compromise.
Yeah, and you brought up, you said rescue, I think, and that was one of the things that was making me think about the fact that we're used to hearing, as we were talking about again before we came on, like the play-by-play commentator and then like an ex-pro or somebody else. You don't have that other person to lean on. You're in there alone that whole time, and especially like during VAR and these other moments, like, I guess the thing is, because usually you could just kind of be like, oh, what do you think of this play? Or what did you see here? And then like, a lot of the broadcasts also have somebody on the ground. You can be like, we're going to go pitch side to this expert that's got this thing. You're there alone. So what kind of strategy, what kind of things have you been doing to kind of fill that in? Because like you can't have that conversation. You can kind of have it with the audience, I guess, but that's pretty one-sided.
I just remember all the conversations you've had on the podcast. And you're there with me in spirit. No, I mean, it's kind of difficult, obviously, to get the balance exactly right. I think it's impossible for me to only be the straight commentator. I do have to play some of the role of the color commentator as well.
Mhm.
And I offer my unsolicited analysis. And I just hope I get the balance right. And there are times, as you suggest, where there's an extended break or there's an injury or there's a team that's just playing it endlessly back and forth across their back line, which happens too often for my liking. Not always, but there are like particularly I felt that Gangwon's Byungsu ball featured far too much passing at the back. I think that's when it was starting to come undone, though, when they were starting to be found out. And obviously they've had to evolve since last season, but not every team does that. But when that happens, you don't want to just keep saying Kim to Park, back to Kim, to Kim. It starts to sound very repetitive when they're going back and forth. So it's, I think at that point it's absolutely essential to offer more. The long-winded way of coming back to this issue of what you do when you're on air and there's any kind of problem, you just draw on your preparation and whatever experience you have, and try to be confident. Try to take those deep breaths to deal with any panic. You might end up saying something that's not exactly what you intended. So at that point, you either turn it into something that sounds like intended, or you just be honest and correct yourself. I mean, really, there are moments where you just have to kind of go into autopilot mode and sort yourself out. But it doesn't happen often. It's some kind of unconventional situation that might occur in a live environment. I've also had the benefit of a lot of live radio shows in current affairs, which prepares you for dealing with unexpected events. But I've literally got a fact sheet in front of me. Well, 3 fact sheets in front of me. I've got the whole of the season's results so far. I've got the whole of the weekend's fixtures. I've got a whole sheet with facts about each team and that weekend, as well as separate team sheets with every face of their squad with about a paragraph under each one. So I can at any time just draw on those, which helps.
We will get you out of here on the football note. And I just want to ask, because again, the amount of research and everything else that goes in and the attention that you have to give each player while calling a match, is there somebody that's really stood out to you this year? I mean, I know Ki Sung-young is back to full health, so and people know that name, and you can still say that, but I did want to preempt that a little bit and say that, like, he's a good one. We know about him. Is there anybody that's kind of surprised you, or anybody that's just really stood out?
I tell you what, this Ki Sung-young player, he could do well in Europe.
I bet he could play in the EPL.
Yeah,
he could do it.
He'd probably have a spell with Celtic first. I think that the thing about Ki Sung-young is he has, in the context of the K-League, the Zidane factor. And what I mean by that is everyone gives him 10 meters to do whatever he wants. People are terrified of kind of going near him. I mean, like, there's no other midfielder in this league, apart from maybe Osmar, who plays alongside him, who's afforded that much space. And partly it's because they play really deep often. And teams don't really start pressing until you're in like that maybe final third or just coming towards the final third. Or at least that's often the case. Not always. But Ki Sung-young, even against high pressing teams, they seem to give him an extra minute because they just, I guess, know he's going to make them look foolish, or they just feel that, just let him pass and we'll deal with it. But of course, as you prefaced there, we can't choose Ki Sung-young. And actually, he's not the player overall that I've been most impressed with. He's had very impressive moments, but there are other players who give a lot more energy on the field and so generally very entertaining to watch. 2 players that come to mind. One we're all very familiar with is Lee Dong-jun, who had, I think, been inconsistent a little bit like some of the players I just mentioned when he was at Busan last year. Frustrated, I think, at times, often fouled or fouling. But since he's moved to Ulsan, I felt like the first time I called Ulsan this year, Lee Dong-jun was outstanding. He was everywhere. He was so skillful and looked like he was going to score every time he burst into the box or set up a goal for a teammate. He was really, I felt like he's coming of age. And a couple of younger players who are still building consistency are, say, Ian Gu at Seoul. I think it was the Suwon FC game where he came off as a sub, and I just thought, wow, this guy is he's just looking ready. Why is he not playing more often for Seoul? And a player that we're seeing a lot of at Pohang coming off the bench is Go Young-jun. But I'm worried about whether he has the full package, but he's got some wonderful skills as well. So those are the sorts of players that when I see them, they make me like sit up and take notice. They do things I'm not expecting. I like these young players who come through. They've got the physicality and kind of swagger and confidence to cope with anyone that's thrown at them, but they're also delivering with a bit of an end product. Because we all know the Cecinyas and the Ki Sung-yongs and of course Ulsan and Jeonbuk are just littered with stars that are always impressive. But it's these other guys who have either just joined some of the bigger teams or still coming through the bigger teams that I'm like, wow, he's got some really interesting talent. Because what's happened in previous years is these top talents would just disappear into Europe straight away or disappear into Japan straight away, and you'd only hear about them like in Son Heung-min's case once he started in Germany properly. And of course the other side of that coin is K-League becoming bigger and not feeling the pressure to have to go to Europe or Japan straight away, but to do what like Lee Chung-yong did, or Ki Sung-yong, actually playing well at Seoul and then making the move. So I'd love to see more of that. And that's why I'm really rooting for those young talents.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's nice seeing the U22 rule in places, because we are seeing some more young players get those minutes. And after the first couple of weeks, I feel like somebody might have had a word with the managers, because we're not seeing those 15, 20-minute subs that we saw in those opening weekends. And I mean, and look, I talk about A-League all the time, but we are seeing it down in Australia right now. Youth can have a really great effect on a league overall. So I think that's, before I get on an A-League tangent, I think that's where we'll leave things for today. But Alex, if people aren't already listening to you calling the matches, where else can they find you online?
There's just lots of freelance media work. So you'll probably see me on, some global news next time North Korea tests a missile. But I hope that I can be, in one modest way, helpful to K-League in terms of bringing English language coverage around the world. I want to urge people to pick a team. Don't sit on the fence like me, because when you pick a team, it becomes more fun. And I'll do my best to each game deliver what matters about that game. I think that's very important as well. To not every game is a super match, so you've got to find the angles. And you guys do that with your podcast. You've been invaluable to me as well, and thank you very much for all the work you do, and all the guys and girls, perhaps, I don't know, all the team who are writing all the previews, but all the folks, very helpful.
Oh, great. Well,
Much
there you
appreciated.
go. We'll just leave it on a ringing endorsement for us. But anyway, Alex, thanks so much for taking the time. And we'll hear you again next weekend.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Fans, we want to hear from you. You're encouraged to email KLU at info@kleagueunited.com or tweet at K-League United with any questions, comments or reactions. Or follow us on Facebook to ask directly during one of our live shows.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters. I am joined once again by Matthew Binns. Welcome back, Matthew.
Hello.
And Matthew, we are here this time to talk about the month of March, the opening month of the season. We're going to be going over our biggest disappointments. That's where we're going to start. So we're going to start negative, go positive, biggest surprises, and an MVP of the month. And let's go ahead. Let's let you get started. The folks just heard from me quite a bit. So biggest disappointment in the opening month, the early days, you might say.
I mean, I've got a lot of little disappointments. The biggest one's quite difficult to get to. I mean, Gangwon's slow start was obviously disappointing, but I think Daegu for me, perhaps we overlooked injuries and the lack of depth when considering our predictions for the end of the season. You could say the same about Gimcheon Sangmu. I think we all thought Gimcheon were going to come firing out the blocks, but then we kind of overlooked the fact that actually some of these new signings need to take 3 weeks mandatory military service before they can actually join up with their club, which they will be doing over the next couple of weeks. So all those players that we were touting at the beginning of the season, they are coming to Gimchon. So yeah, disappointment at the moment. I also may as well just go for my litter of small disappointments. But I've been disappointed by Kim Sang-shik for Jeonbuk. I know it's a topic close to my heart, Jeonbuk, obviously, and they are top and they are unbeaten. So yeah, not a lot to cry. It's the world's smallest violin, I know, but it's just how he was obviously well rated, well respected within the Jeonbuk by the Jeonbuk board, within the Jeonbuk staff, and I think it's not got off to the best start. I don't think Jeonbuk did enough in the winter. I think that's not helped him. But just look, I've been looking at the stats. There's going to be an editorial. I've been doing some research for an editorial that's coming out. There's also going to be a piece on Saturdays about all of this, but just how toothless they are. Now, since 2015, Jeonbuk have averaged like 14 to 16 shots per game. Since 2015, they've always done that. So far, these 6 games, they've averaged 10 shots a game. 10. Jose Moraes was getting 16 shots a game. And
back-to-back champion, FA Cup winner for the first time. That guy?
But that's it. And it's just like they're not countering. They're slow. I was looking at their counter stats. They only average just under two counter attacks per game. And only 20% of them actually lead to a shot being placed. So they're not countering either. They're slow. And they're also the first Jeonbuk team in the last couple of seasons to have conceded more shots per game on average than actually made them. So it's, we have said in previous seasons, Jeonbuk don't look up to it, and they do come good. And I imagine this Jeonbuk side will come good. But in terms of slow starts and how they go, this Jeonbuk team, there is a lot to be concerned about there. But yeah, that would be my disappointment as a Jeonbuk fan, but as a neutral, I'd probably say Gimcheon Sangmu or Daegu.
As a neutral, I think we're all happy to see Jeonbuk struggling. The team that I picked out here was the Pohang Steelers. They started out hot with a win over Incheon and then really cooled off. Obviously, they were always going to miss Pulasevic and Ilyachenko. But to me, Kang Hyun-moo, the match he had against Suwon was shockingly bad. It was very surprising. He was replaced by Hwang and Jae versus Sungnam, and that didn't get them a win either there. So Pohang, we always expected them to slide. So that's not that much of a disappointment. For me, I went to K2 for mine. It's Oh Se-hoon. Oh Se-hoon has 3 appearances, about over 200 minutes so far, 0 goals, 4 shots, none on target, only 2 progressive runs, and he's averaging just 2 touches in the box per match right now. So I know, like we said, Gimcheon has more people coming, but Gimcheon finished the season well. They have enough talent on that roster to be competing in K-League 2. I know they don't have everybody there now, and I still do think that they'll do really, really well this season, but disappointing from him because I thought going back down to K2 that this would be his season. You know, he looked really good with Asan Magunghwa when he was there, and so I thought with this Gimcheon side that this would be his time to shine, and maybe it still will be, but a disappointing opening month for him, I think. Yeah. So let's just leave it there. Pick it up, Oh Se-hoon. We've all want to see more from you. I'll start with the biggest surprise. I'll stick in K2, and it's Seoul Eland for me. I thought they would be good, but I didn't think they would be this good. They're still undefeated. They've scored 8 goals, which is vastly outperforming their 4.74 expected goals. That's right, Matthew. Just for you, I went to expected goals this week.
I like expected goals. Thank you.
I know, that's why I said just for you. I was being honest.
Oh no, I thought I did. I just assume everything's just snide. No, I'm joking.
The difference between the American way and the English way.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna. Yeah, because everything in America is positive. Anyway, they've only conceded 1, as you mentioned earlier, and they have an expected goals against of 2.89. So they're outperforming all of their stats, and I think a lot of that also is because the team has just gelled so well so quickly. And credit to Chung Jung-young there. Benegas has been fantastic. He's got 2 already, and I think his partnership with Barbio is seeing both of them get the most out of each other, because we saw Barbio with Bucheon didn't perform at the level that he performed in March for them. I think that it's just a better fit for him at Eland. And yeah, again, I picked them as a playoff team. I thought they would do well, but they're outperforming even those expectations. So good on you. Leopards reign.
Yeah, I think. Well, I've kind of put the same actually for Seoul Eland. I was impressed with them against Busan. I think they got a fair bit of help from the Busan goalkeeper in that opening match, but I still think they played well. But then, denying how well they played against Gimjeon Sangmu, then you kind of had to take a step back and say, well, fair play, 4-0. Then. Yeah, 1-1 against Jeonnam isn't a bad result. Jeonnam are a difficult team to defeat. They're not a great team to
defeat this season.
Yeah, at the moment. But yeah, well, 0-0, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's not the end of the world. That's an away result. It's against Gyeongnam, who were vying for promotion in the playoff final. So they've versed some very big teams to start the season with, and they've come out relatively unscathed. Michael Redmond, our Seoul Elan columnist, though, he did mention Seoul's biggest flaw last season was how they did it against the teams that they should be beating. And I think when we start to see Seoul Elan face those teams which they should be beating, we might start to think they might come down to where we predicted them to finish. But yeah, so far so good for Seoul Elan.
Yeah. And before we move on from Elan, Clint, the 94th minute, is in the comments again saying the MVP for the month should be Big Michael Redmond for his glorious modeling of Elan merch. And in case you've missed that, Michael was part of the official merch photo shoot for Seoul Elan. Some great pictures of him, and appreciate your phone case, Michael. I'm just going to say that. And I'll let people look up why we're saying that. But the actual MVP, Matthew, who do you have for this one, for the March month?
Well, I kind of know who you've picked, and I also have got that person down, so I'm not going to pick them because I also think that they are actually going to be handed the award come the end of the month. But I'd like to shine some light on a couple of other players, and I think Incheon United's Elias Aguilar. I'll get it right one of these weeks. I do go back and I listen to how you say it in the previous podcast, but then I forget as soon as we go live, and I've completely forgotten. But I think
remember his nickname is Aguilar.
Okay.
There's no we.
I'll have another run up. Anyway, but yeah, I think Elias Aguilar has been nailed it. Has been playing fantastic for Incheon, and especially with without Magosa up front for Incheon, you could predict that they might have struggled like they have been doing at the beginning of seasons, and you wouldn't have been wrong to be thinking that. But they've just come out all guns blazing, and this man's been at the centre of it all. And Nageva has also come into proceeding slowly, and he's now beginning to get on the score sheet as well. So I think the signs are good there for Incheon. But yeah, I've put him as my MVP for the month.
I think that's a really great shout. I was impressed with him. I was there for the opener in Pohang. Thought he played well there. It was a well-taken goal. And yeah, like you say, I think we expected him to struggle a little bit more without Magosa. And yeah, he's carrying that load, and looks good doing it, looks comfortable. So yeah, I like that shout. I did go for the slightly obvious pick. I had to, hence why I'm in the stripes today for this podcast. I went with Ki Sung-young. He's got 3 goals already, 2 of which have been match winners. The other one leveled things in the super match. A 93% passing accuracy. I mean, I know we expect this, but it's still 93% passing accuracy, 90% accurate into the final third. He's moving the ball forward twice as often as he's using a back pass. 450 minutes played already, which is almost 4 times as much as he played last season. So not saying a lot there, but nice to see him healthy and playing. He's also pitched in with 21 interceptions. I mean, he's doing all of the things that we know he can do, but to see him do this and to see him do it as well as he has, I mean, again, we could watch that assist on the Nasang Ho goal over and over and over, and it's fantastic. I mean, again, as Alex was saying in that interview, I don't know why teams are giving him as much space as they are, and that was certainly a factor in that Suwon assist, that they just kind of sat back. And if you're going to give a player of Ki Sung-young's level that much time on the ball, he's going to hurt you. But I still think he's playing really, really well right now. I think Seoul look a different side because of him, and yeah, he's my MVP of the month. And Matthew been stunned into silence.
No, I was definitely not stunned into silence. He's been playing very well. So I honestly think he will be given the official award as well at the end of this month, just because the match winners, the assists. And it's Ki Sung-young, isn't it? I mean, but yeah, No, I think good shout there. I'd also just again we mentioned him earlier, but Guangzhou's goalkeeper. We don't always put these goalkeepers MVP. Goalkeepers never get the MVP award, so why not
They
just?
should.
Yeah,
Hugo
well,
Sam?
yeah, I think he's done all right this season. Just from watching, I haven't got any stats really to back it up, but he's been put under a lot of pressure, and he's kind of looked good when we've been put under attacks and things. So yeah, I'd like to just give a shout out to him as well in this category.
Always liked him. Think he's doing well there. All right, well, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be back to answer some of your questions in the Old G. Louis mailbag. We'll be right back.
Old G. Louis is your neighborhood British bar and cafe located in the Old Giro district of Seoul. Decorated in old English antiques and furniture for a true homely feel, you can enjoy homemade scones, cakes and afternoon tea during the day, and traditional British favorites like beef stew, English ale, and a fine selection of wines at night. Available for private parties or simply an evening out, Old G. Louis is sure to become your favorite neighborhood pub. Be sure to mention K-League United at the bar during your visit, and you'll get 10% off your bill.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, and I am joined in the Old G. Louis mailbag by Matthew Binns. Every time we play that ad, for those that are watching live, you see it. For those on the podcast edition, you got to go check it out. The dog at the end, the dog is Old G. Louis, and it makes me want to go there every single time. An adorable dog wearing a bow tie serving martinis. What's not to love about it? Anyway, what do we got?
Right, we've got a number of questions in. It was a last-minute mailbag, but still got some very big questions coming in. Some of them going slightly international, and they're probably quite fitting on a international break. So we've got a question in from Macamedia via Twitter asking, who's the next Korean talent set to take the world by storm after Park Ji-sung and Son Heung-min for United and Tottenham, respectively? QPR and Tottenham, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, what team? Anyway, the next player. I mean, are we trying to predict somebody that's like 18 right now? Is that where you want to go with this?
Well, I mean, I think the problem is going that big, trying to pick a player who will be that's much
massive.
of a talent. The
biggest men's Korean players in history.
Yeah, I do think you might. There are some good talents in the K-League who might be able to move to Europe. I think if we're talking about players who are going to be that big, we might be talking about players already in Europe. For me, I think Lee Kang-in at the age of 20, he's Valencia. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him still. I know, he's a known quantity, but he's not that known. So certainly a player that can only really get better. I mean, Hwang Hee-chan, he's only 25. He's peak years ahead of him, RB Leipzig. And I mean, one player we've always liked, and he was from the K-League, now in Chinese Super League, but is Kim Min-jae. Keeps getting touted for a move to Europe. I'd like to see what he could do over there. It's been a long couple of years in Beijing for him. I'm not entirely sure how he is faring these days, but the hype still surrounds him as one of Korea's best centre-backs. So certainly I'd like to see him make the move to Europe and become one of these well-known Korean players. But yeah, I think it's quite hard to name players that are going to be reaching that kind of a peak.
Yeah, I think I'll leave that one there where you've left that as well. Because that's a real high mountain to climb. I mean, I think if we're talking more of like a Ki Sung-young or a Cha Do-ri, that level of Korean international, I think Won Do-jae could get to that point. I really like him.
That answers the next question very nicely, because we do have a question in from Hyun titled. Well, we have two questions, but their first question, which I'd kind of merged into that one, was next player to go to Europe. And well, Won Do-jae is a player that I also think could do very well. I also think Song Min-kyu, currently at Pohang Steelers. He's still very young, still a young player of the year, and just
Oh Man-song's another one. I think he's been fantastic for Gwangju. I think it might take something like we're seeing with Lee Dong-jun and Ulsan of getting on one of the bigger teams here with a little bit more talent around him to see what he could do. Because I think Oh Man-song, if he's not at Gwangju, I mean, no offense to Gwangju, but Gwangju isn't Ulsan, and I think if he's at a team where he's got a little bit more talent around him to help him, I think he could have a tremendous season here and then move on. I think any of those guys could make the move within the next couple of years, to be honest.
Well, Untitled did have another question, which is a question I'd really like to dig into, which was more about the thoughts on what the current financial crisis in the Chinese Super League and how will that affect the K-League? Because, well, for those who might not be following the Chinese Super League at the moment, well, they've lost their champions. Jiangsu Suning, or Jiangsu FC, as they were going to be renamed for this season. The backers have pulled the plug, and it's not they're not just the only Chinese team that are suffering at the moment, but they're certainly obviously the highest profile name that's taking a casualty there. And yeah, it's partly worrying. I guess you could suggest the on one hand, players are less likely to be poached from the K-League, but on the other hand, players are less likely to be poached. The money that John Book has brought in for the last few seasons, the big transfer fees, all between $4 and $6 million US, they've all been players moving to China. Well, for the most part, nearly all the players moving to China. And then that money, John Book will often buy players, and that money will get fed through the league. So there is that element of it. And obviously China have been going for other players from K-League clubs as well. So there'll be less money going into the K-League. I guess there might be former K-League players who might fancy coming back. That could be a positive. Any K-League clubs looking about? I don't know. It's not good for the region, obviously.
Right.
I might not be the massive fan of the Chinese Super League, but it's not good for the region to have its leagues being so unstable, and it could have a knock-on effect. Probably bad for the Champions League in the short term, especially with teams just dropping out, but perhaps good in the long term, because it means that these other regions might get a chance at representation in the competition.
Precisely. Yeah. I mean, I think in that regard, ACL is going to be fine, just because I think, especially in future tournaments when we can actually have teams throughout the region. Again, I don't necessarily want to see ACL drop this hub idea. I think that this does really work. I think you just have that toured around. But, for example, we are seeing 3 Thai teams in ACL this year, with Ratchaburi going ahead and getting in, with Pohang and their group, because they don't need a playoff anymore for one final spot, because there are 2 spots with Jiangsu now out. I'd like seeing more teams in the region. I mean, this is something we've been talking about for years with the CSL, is how long can they keep it up? How long can they just keep outbidding everybody else for these high profile players and paying them more than anybody else? How long is that sustainable? And I think we're starting to see the end of that. Well, we are.
And we're not seeing the domestic talent in China make the same number of moves as domestic talent in the K-League go overseas as well. So for all the money they've been investing, what's really left once the foreign players aren't coming in anymore? I mean, there's people better placed to comment on the Chinese Super League than us, but that's perhaps our view from looking from the outside in. But yeah, worrying in terms of money coming into the K-League. But let's go back to the Peninsula now and maybe focus on some questions a bit closer to home. And we have one in from our very own George Slade, looking towards this weekend's FA Cup, and we've not really previewed this one, but biggest team team most likeliest to cause an upset in this weekend's FA Cup second round.
Ooh, I mean, I usually go for Hwasong, just because I think they'll usually do well, but I'm not going to go for them. An upset this weekend. Cheonan City might be able to get one over on Anyang. I've not been too tremendously impressed with Anyang so far this season. Goyang Citizen, now Cheongnam Masan's kind of turned it around now these days. Mokpo City versus Gimpo Citizen is going to be a fun one in the lower leagues. All right, I'm going to pick one. I'm going to say Korea will get one over Gyeongnam.
Korea is always kind of one of the.
Would that even be an upset?
Well, not based on their form a couple of seasons ago. What about Chongsul against Jeonnam Dragons? I mean, surely the Dragons must be quaking in their boots.
That's where we're finally going to start scoring some goals, man. They're looking forward to that one. We might score more than one goal in a game. Can you imagine a world in which your team scores more than a goal?
Penalty shootouts don't count, unfortunately. But no, to answer the question, I'd be a little bit worried about. No, I still think Gimchon have enough to get through. But the form they've been in, and Pyeongtaek might fancy their chances.
I like that one actually.
And also, dare I say it, Daejeon. I just don't.
Versus Paju Citizens going to get one over on Daejeon?
I mean, I'm not. No, they're not. But I think it won't be as comfortable as Daejeon might think it will be, and not based on their current form. But we'll see.
A lot of those matches, by the way, if folks are watching or listening internationally, a lot of those games are streamed on the KFA's YouTube channel. So if you want to watch some fun lower league FA Cup this weekend, it might be available.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be sending out the links where possible via K-League United on Twitter. So we also have a question in about the K-League from Daejeon Citizen FC Brazil, asking the best signing until now in the K1 and the K2.
Can we go back to the disappointing? Because I can tell you who isn't the best signing in either division right now. I'll defer to you.
Oof! Well, thank you for that. Took me under the bus, but it's not Bus from Songnam as much as I was tempted to go with that segue. He has been all right though, hasn't he? I've gone for Lee Dong-jun from Ulsan. He did get a mention earlier from Alex when he was on, and I think he was a very good acquisition for Ulsan there. Mulic as well at Songnam's been looking good in recent weeks. That could be Songnam. I was going to mention them in the surprises, but they have been quietly competent this season, which makes a nice surprise. I think K2. I think Busan have had two good signings in Am Byung-jun and Valentinos. I think both of them have looked well. Am Byung-jun came good in the round 4, and Valentinos he's done it all right as well this season. So both of them good shouts, I think.
I'll stay on my Gangwon hype train for as long as I can. I'll say Kim Dae-won. I really liked him for Daegu. I think he's doing really well for them. And as they kind of continue to turn things around, I think he's going to continue to be important. So I think he's a really important signing. Is he the best? Maybe not. Maybe, though. I think he's really good.
Okay. Well, the final one in the mailbag has come in during the show, and that is from our very own Dan Croydon. Tuning in to say 2 red cards, 3 handball penalties. Has Park Ji-soo made the worst start ever at a new club? You'd be surprised to know he did all of that in 3 days. Not 3 days.
A week, though.
A week. That's what I was going to say. 3 games in a week. Both red cards were rescinded. It's quite an unfortunate start, I'd say, for him, because obviously the red cards were rescinded as they weren't deserved, but and the handball's accidental. But he's got alien arms apparently.
And that is a rough start. I don't know. There was one guy when I was at the Jumbook home opener in 2016. There was some guy convincing me that Kim Shin-uk was going to have like the worst debut ever, but scored a header in that game from what I remember, and came good.
Yeah, became a legend. I mean, I just did a quick Google during an advert, one of the adverts, just to find a terrible debut. And as it's a question from Dan, I think I'll just say Gary Flitcroft, Blackburn, sent off in 3 minutes, but he did have quite a good career after that. Anyway, I think that's it for the Ulji Luis mailbag.
All right. Good. Okay, so moving on. If you want to interact with Dan a little bit more, or us, not Matthew though, because he's done now, you can get involved on Patreon, where we have our Survivor series going on. We also have some changes coming to Patreon soon, but I'll keep that mysterious for now. As of right now, if you want to get involved with Survivor, you can get in at the $1 tier for that, and all you have to do is pick a team that won't lose. That's all sorts of fun. We also have Saturdays with Koreans Overseas. We have the full interview that I did for this episode with Alex Jensen. We chatted for a really long time. We chatted for about a half an hour. Couldn't fit all that into this podcast, so the full version will be over on Patreon there. And we'll have player interviews coming up very soon. And all of that is available at $1, $3, or $5. And if you would like to listen to this podcast live, you can do so every Thursday on Football Nation Radio in Australia. And again, just another shout out for A-League. Loving it. Keep the love in the Asian leagues. And we do have a kit to give away next month. I have it in hand. I'm going to keep it mysterious. But we do have a brand new 2021 kit. No retro for the month of April. We have a new kit to give away in the month of April. And if you would like to be entered into the contest to win that kit, all you need to do is leave us a review, 5 stars preferred, on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, or wherever you download your podcasts. But for now, for only Matthew Binns, I'm Ryan Walters. Thanks so much for watching.
정주성 고공 폭격기 김신우